Alright, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Bismillah walhamdulillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillahi wa ba'd. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wa ahlul uqdatan min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbana zidna ilman ya kareem. Welcome back everyone, inshallah, to the finale. Hopefully we can finish the entire story today. Depends how many questions you guys ask, inshallah. So we're going to complete the story of Husain radiallahu an and his martyrdom and what took place at that time. And before I begin today's session, a little increase. Yeah, I figured. Can we increase just a little bit? I think it will help. Because if I want to scream at the kids, it's just easier. You know? Not that I don't get enough practice at home. You know? Basketball courts. Hey, that's a foul. All right. A little increase would help. Is that better, Brother Asif? I wasn't that commanding. Oh, okay, mashallah, mashallah, look. Yeah, you should be my voice coach. All right. So before we begin, inshallah, there are some basic concepts that we need to understand so that I can complete the story. And oftentimes, because we lack these concepts, emotions get carried away, and we as a community, we as Sunnis, as Shias, we might feel very emotionally riled when we talk about this story. Okay? And the first concept that we must understand, few concepts, but the first concept is that our Sharia is built on 5 aspects. What are they? Who's going to tell me? Our Sharia is built on 5 pillars. No, that's maqasid al-Sharia. Okay? That is a very different concept. We're not going into maqasid, right? But yeah, there are 5, and protection of deen is 1. Hifdul deen, hifdul aql, hifdul mal, hifdul jah, and all of that. So that's, and hifdul isma. So that's 5, that's different. What are the 5 things? Or if you, let's say our deen consists of 5 things. Those are the pillars. But okay, fine. Salah, zakat and stuff, that's just 1/5. That is called what? Ibadat. Okay? So the first category is al-ibadat. Now this is all the 5 pillars, and everything else that our devotions, our worship to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala falls under the category of what? Al-ibadat. What's the next one? Mu'amalat. Our dealings. Dealings with non-Muslims, dealings with Muslims, barter, trade, buy, sell. All of this is called mu'amalat. Okay? Dealing with other people, mu'amalat. Then we have munakahat. Munakahat is things that come into existence in our society as a consequence of a nikah. Children, consequence of a nikah. In-laws, bahusas, consequence of nikah. Right? These are all things that come into our society, mother, father, all of that because of munakahat. If there was no munakahat, there was no nikah, there's an entire fabric of our society, it would not exist. So it came into existence because of munakahat or marital affairs. Yes? Sorry? So inheritance is part of ibadah because it's a command from Allah. Okay? Right? So those are things so anything that are wajibat, for example, that are mandatory on us as part of an ayah of the Quran, that is going to be ibadat. Okay? So ibadat are the 5 pillars, but then there are external ibadat, for example, inheritance and some other things related to that. Okay? So, can you repeat the 4 first before I tell you the 5th? Tell me the first one. Who's going to tell me the first one? Ibadat. Number 2, mu'amalat. Number 3, munakahat. Number 4, I didn't tell you. I was just checking. Yeah? I have my coffee this morning. Right? So, number 4 is jinayat. The word jani in Arabic means a criminal. So this is the criminal code of Islam. This is the category of Islam that Fox News is very interested in. That's about it. They only care about this. Oh, hands cut off, this happened, that they only care about this category. The criminal code of Islam. Okay? Then you have the 5th, which is as-siyasat, politics. So how is everything governed? Politics. Okay? Now, we must understand this. So your foundation of your Islam, if somebody is absolutely perfect in their deen, absolutely perfect in their deen, in terms of ibadat, but he's a horrible person in his muamalat, horrible person with his family, right? A horrible person in terms of the society, he cuts corners, steals, all a criminal code, right? His salah and his siyam and his umrah and all of that is not going to get him into Jannah, because out of the 1/5, 1/5, 1/5, 1/5, 1/5, the guy only is perfect in the 25%. 20%, sorry. He still struggles in the rest of 80. So the question sometimes that we may have is like, how can a practicing Muslim do that? Well, because he's only practicing 1/20th. So when somebody is practicing, and the sad reality is we have confined Islam to this 1/20th only. Do you get it? This 1/20th only. That's why Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, so that we don't make this mistake, he said in an authentic hadith, ad-deenu, what did he say? Hiyal mu'amala. Deen is, if you want to know what deen is, it's about mu'amalat, dealings. Okay? So you'll have a person, mashallah, excellent in salah, excellent in everything, but absolutely no idea how to deal with individuals and people. Okay? We'll have schools that will focus on this 1/5, but the rest, mu'amala and how to deal in relationships with parents, all of that, zero. Non-existent in most Islamic schools. You'll have weekend schools that will never focus on mu'amala. They'll never focus on dealings. Marital, family, not even discussed. Okay? So, repeat again. Who's going to repeat them for me? 5. What are they? Ibadat, mu'amalat, munakahat, jinayat, and siyasat. Okay? Okay, siyasat. In siyasa is the whole element of how do you govern all of this, number 1. And number 2, if there is a warfare, if there is attacks, then how do you defend yourselves? What are the rules? I used to have a book, I lost it when I was transiting from Saudi. It was a book that was 450 page, which had adab of siyasat, etiquettes of politics. Over 300 page book only focusing on etiquettes of politics. Okay, so our deen is a complete deen, it's just we haven't taken it completely. That's what is the problem. Okay, now for us to understand Imam Husain radiallahu anhu's fight for this cause, we must understand that in his mind there were 6 things in Islam, not 5. Okay? So this is where the entire fiqhi discussion is happening at the Sahaba level. So they had in the mind of Imam Husain, Abdullah ibn Zubayr, and many of the Sahabas, when they initially refused Yazid, they believed in a 6th element of Islam, which was Khilafah. And the core principle that all of us need to understand, without going into the intricacies of who is a Khalifa, when is a Khalifa appointed, that's not the discussion for this crowd. And I don't think that's a discussion for public at all. But the discussion we need to understand is the core foundation of what Khilafah is. which is أمرهم شورى بينهم. It is a successive group of individuals who have authority decide who is going to be the Khalifa. Cool? And that was being the sixth. So imagine in Imam Husain's mind, there is the building of Islam, and the sixth floor of the building has been now removed or demolished or collapsed because of Yazid appointing himself as the Khalifa and forcing people to accept him as a Khalifa. So he is fighting to rebuild the sixth. Hassan radiallahu an, when he stepped down from Khilafah, the condition was, Yazid, Muawiyah radiallahu an, I will take you as a Khalifa, no problem. But the condition is, after your death, we will rebuild that sixth floor again. Okay? Now I'm saving you all a lot of intricacies here. I'm just giving you an analogy so you understand why were they fighting? This was the fight. This is the reason of the fight. Okay? Bottom line. So around Yazid's time, Abdullah ibn Umar and Abdullah ibn Abbas, they said, listen, the sixth floor of Islam is great to govern the rest of the 5 floors. But if we do not have the sixth floor and we have something similar to the sixth floor, which was kingship, as long as that kingship adheres to all the principles of the sixth floor, except the element that, we didn't choose him, but they chose and they, forced themselves on us, we can accept it. Because the damage of going against this is going to be a lot. But Abdullah ibn Abbas and Husain radiallahu anh are of the opinion, nope, that sixth floor should always be there. Now, historically, we must understand that it was not only Abdullah ibn Zubayr and Husain radiallahu anh that actually tried to rebuild that sixth floor. Okay? It was also the grandson of Hassan radiallahu anh, after Husain's death, 20 years or so. He also retried and established people selected him and said, you are the descendant of Rasulullah from Hassan radiallahu anhu's sons, you are going to grandsons and you're going to do Khilafah, and they appointed him. There was another attempt and it was stifled. And similarly, for the first 100 years there were multiple attempts by the 2 tribes. If you remember, Banu Umayyah is in power, so Banu Hashim and Banu Abbas, they're trying to figure out how can we get power. That's all they're trying to do here. And finally, around the 90 Hijrah, they realized that the 6th floor is not going to be made again, ever. So they switched their strategy and they said, we will also fight to build kingdom. And that's where the Dawla al-Abbasiyya came into existence. Because they switched their strategy. And they had a lot more street cred, right? Street credibility. They were well established. They had all the important names that was needed to build a new kingdom. And Banu Umayyah, from the waqi'ah of Husain, 40 years, the entire Dawla al-Amawiyya completely collapsed. Because of obviously what they were doing. Okay? So we must understand this before I actually begin the topic for today, so that we have this. So Muslim ibn Aqil, we left off last time, that Husain radiallahu an sends Muslim ibn Aqil. Husain radiallahu an meets this famous Farazdaq, famous poet, and the poet tells Husain radiallahu an, قُلُوبُهُمْ مَعَكْ وَسُيُوفُهُمْ مَعَ بَنِي أُمَيَّةِ. Their hearts are with you, but their swords are with Banu Umayyah. But Husain radiallahu an, he does not listen to Farazdaq, and he says, I have all of these letters and I'm still going to proceed. The time that he leaves, Husain radiallahu an, he saves himself during the Hajj. I don't know if I told you guys, there was a fatwa that was given for Husain radiallahu an's execution wherever he is found in Mecca. At that time. Because he was seen as somebody who was revolting against the government. Okay? Yazid at that time was not concerned about why he's revolting. His concern was, I need to consolidate power ASAP. And if there are any factions of revolts, if one begins and another begin, I need to stifle all of them. So Husain radiallahu anh recognizes this around the 9th and 10th of Dhul Hijjah. He heads out on the 11th of Dhul Hijjah. He saves himself and leaves on 1st of Yawm al-Tarwiyah. He leaves, and then at the same time on the day of Arafah, something very interesting happens. Muslim ibn Aqil was being supported by a very important figure in Kufa at that time by the name of Hani ibn Urwa. Hani ibn Urwa was from an aristocrat. He was from a society, from those, today, if you, modern day analogy, there were the lobby groups. So he was from one of the lobby groups. He had a very powerful lobby, very powerful tribe. He could influence policies. Okay, and I'm giving you these in a modern day perspective. It was not what happened there, but for you to understand, right? So the policy, he was from those group of people that were really next to, at that time, Ubaidullah ibn Ziyad or Ibn Ziyad. So Ibn Ziyad, he is there, and he's been appointed by Yazid. And his job, and one job was to make sure that Husain never makes it to Kufa, radiallahu anh. He never makes it to Kufa. Now Ibn Ziyad was known as a very harsh tyrant. Stories and stories of Ibn Ziyad are written. One of the famous stories that is talked about by every speaker, everyone talks about it, is the story of Ibn Ziyad making an order that nobody should leave their houses after Isha prayer. And Ibn Ziyad would actually pick up his sword and he would go and roam around the streets of Kufa and Basra. He was the governor for both these places, and he would roam around, and if he would find anybody, children, a child or woman, it really doesn't matter, he would just take his sword and kill them. Once upon a time he found a farmer at the gate of the Kufa, and he said to him, "Mabik, why are you outside?" He said, "Wallahi ta'akhart, I got late. I had these goats. I was out in the valley and it took a while and I got late." So he says, "It is better for you that rather than you enter Kufa, you shall enter Jannah." He took out the sword and chopped the guy's head off. And he said, Ibn Ziyad does not repeat his sentences again. I told you nobody's going to enter after Isha. No one is going to enter. That means no one. Okay, this is the type of person he is. Who appointed him? Yazid. To Kufa. Who did he remove? He removed a person who was a Sahabi, Nu'man Bashir, who was the governor at that time, appointed by Muawiyah at that time. So first mistake, he's removing a Sahabi and putting somebody who's not a Sahabi. Number two, he's putting somebody who is known as a tyrant. Okay, all of this is going to consolidate later, but you must understand these points. So Ibn Ziyad, he has one day to figure out who is supporting Muslim ibn Aqil and the 14,000 people that gave allegiance, and another narration 24, another narration 40,000, irrespective, huge number of people supported him. So he has this limited time to figure out where is the cell that he needs to break in. So he makes up this plan and he gives this old person lots of money, and it says, look, tasanna, you become and act like a beggar from Sham, from Syria, but pretend that you're a super rich person and you want to support. Anta min Shi'at Ali, you are from the people who are the Shia, i.e. supporters of Ali. And tell the people that you find that you want to give a lot of money for the cause of Husain. Within a day, this person was able to infiltrate all the lines because of money, until Hani ibn Urwa was exposed. So the next day, the next day Ibn Ziyad, he brings Hani ibn Urwa to the palace and he arrests him. And he takes out his sword, and it is mentioned that he slashed his eyebrow and a lip. The people, Banu Urwa, they actually heard about Hani ibn Urwa, our main leader, they surrounded the palace with 4,000 people in a day. And they said to Ibn Ziyad, we can take you down in a day. We want to make sure that Hani is okay. At that time, one of the famous qadis of that time, he actually goes in and he meets Hani ibn Urwa, And he comes out and he says to everybody, I have seen him and he is absolutely okay. So there's nothing to be worried about. So they gave him a warning that if you do this again and if something happens to Hani, then we are going to make sure that you actually are never going to be in power. And we'll take away our support from you. That's how much they had support. So he quickly realizes that the political situation is very weak. And he realizes that he may be surrounded by Muslim ibn Aqil and his followers very soon. Ibn Ziyad is not a person who needs an army. Right? He entered Kufa and took over the entire Kufa with 17 people. So that is something you must understand from his intellect. The guy is he's a sharp mind. So he recognizes and he is playing before even Muslim ibn Aqil and Husain radiallahu anh can even plan. So he says, listen, ما أرى إلا أن يهاجمني Muslim ibn Aqil. I have a spidey sense, right? My spidey sense is tingling. I think that Muslim ibn Aqil is going to attack on the day of Arafah. He's going to use that opportunity. So what we must do is we must call for a massive iftar of Arafah. Whether it was a dinner or not, the iftar of the day of Arafah on the 9th. And we'll call every leader, their mother and all of their female relatives, everybody that we can. And we will we will host them, and we will delay the food until it becomes very late at night. And then most of them will have no choice but to camp over in the palace. But that was a really interesting plan. You will see how this works out later. So Muslim ibn Aqil, he had the plan, and the condition was by Husain radiallahu anh that take bay'ah. لا تتحرك. Do not get into movement, i.e. do not mobilize. Stay put until I arrive. Stay put until I arrive. So at that point, Muslim ibn Aqil, he kind of panicked. And he's like, man, Hani ibn Urwa is arrested. He's our only supporter. And if he's arrested, it's over. So there was a secret code that they had. Ya Mansur amit amit. Oh Mansur, die. This was a secret code, which meant if this goes around and everybody gets to know about the secret code, that means we're attacking. So he preceded the plan of Husain and said, listen, before even Husain radiallahu anh comes, I'm going to take care of this. So he takes 4,000 people, Muslim ibn Aqil, and attacks the palace of Ibn Ziyad. And at Fajr, the day of Eid, he attacks. Now when he attacks, Ibn Ziyad is very smart. He kept all of those families hostage that were there for the Arafah iftar. Arrested all of them, said none of you can leave. Closed the gates of the castle. So Muslim ibn Aqil is surrounding them with 4,000 people, and he's thinking he's going to take them down. And Ibn Ziyad is like, listen, all of you that are here, none of you are going to leave, and everyone is going to be killed. Unless each one of you goes out to the balcony and convinces your relatives that are out there with Muslim ibn Aqil to leave, and make sure you tell them that I have a massive army coming from Sham. If that army makes it to Kufa, I will take down the entire tribe of yours. And he started by sending women to the balcony. So the mother would go and start pleading to his young son and don't do this. The father is going to go, the wives. So he used emotional blackmail until that conversations kept going. No fighting is taking place. Muslim ibn Aqil surrounded them in the morning. At Asr time, Muslim ibn Aqil only has 140 people left from 4,000. All of them retreated. So at that point, there was this one person, he understood the severity of what was taking place. He's like, man, this could go sideways. If we kill them all, right now they are in a position, they just want to fight and die. So why don't we just give them space and room and not attack? And hopefully they will retreat. So they all retreated to this masjid. That masjid today is also, preserved by in Kufa. If you go there, they've preserved that masjid. It's a big monastery. People go there and worship. There's no significance for that in Islam. But again, it's a historical monument for us. Something happened there. So when Muslim ibn Aqil enters the masjid, as they are retreating in a dark, trying to find that masjid towards the sunset, from the 140, or another narration it says 70 people, from the 140 or 70 people, when he gets to the masjid, he only has a total of less than 20 people behind him. He enters Salatul Maghrib, and when he leads Salatul Maghrib and he ends the Salah, nobody is behind him. Every single person that was the supporter, and they claim to be the supporters of Husain and all of that, they all backtracked. And Muslim ibn Aqil was left alone until he had to take refuge in an old woman's house. The son of that old woman used to work, is directly working with Ibn Ziyad, and he tells Ibn Ziyad that I have Muslim ibn Aqil in my house, send the army, and Muslim ibn Aqil is arrested. Muslim ibn Aqil, he's crying when he's arrested. And Hur ibn Yazid, we're going to learn about him later. Hur ibn Yazid, sometimes you have within the good army bad people, you have people who have good hearts. Hur ibn Yazid says to Muslim ibn Aqil, La tabki, don't cry. Are you crying because you are dying? Innama yaf'alu mithluk. The one who does something like you're revolting against the kingdom, should not be the one who's crying. So Muslim ibn Aqil at this point, what does he say? He says, I'm not crying about myself. For verily I have, in my eyes, died many years ago for the cause of Husain. I'm crying because of the family that is about to come, and they are not going to know what is happening here. If you have any good left in you, Hur ibn Yazid, then I ask you by Allah to send a message before they kill me. Send a message to Husain and tell him, do not come to Kufa. Al-Kufa la yufa. People of Kufa did not honor their commitment. Now Husain radiallahu an, he doesn't get this message until he reaches Kufa. So he's already, until he reaches closer to Kufa by near Karbala. So what happens? Hur ibn Yazid takes him to Ibn Ziyad. Ibn Ziyad says, listen, we need to make an example of this person, Muslim ibn Aqil. And what we need to do is we need to take him to the tallest tower that exists. Some say it was in the palace, some say it was part of another masjid, Allahu Alam. But he goes to a very high tower, and they push him from top of the tower while entire public and the ones who were supporting, they were all there seeing him. And he dies. Now Muslim ibn Aqil dies, they also kill Hani ibn Urwa right after that, the next day. So on the day of Arafah, Muslim ibn Aqil, the next day Hani ibn Urwa is killed. So this is a very strong message that we are serious about this and we are not going to turn back. One second, what happened to my... So we're not going to turn back from this. So the next part that happens is something very interesting for us. So Hani ibn Urwa, not Hani ibn Urwa, Hur ibn Yazid, and you have to remember two names, Hur ibn Yazid and Umar ibn Sa'ad ibn Waqqas. Sa'ad ibn Waqqas, the one who was granted Jannah. That Sa'ad, the one who accepted Islam at the hands of Abu Bakr. The 6 people that Abu Bakr brought to Islam, from those 6 was one Sa'ad. That Sa'ad, his son, is now appointed as the leader of the army that is going to take out Husain radiallahu anh. And this is a pause for us to understand that the Aqidah of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah is that we hold, all of us, we believe that Sahabas, it is not possible for them to consciously and openly disobey Allah in major commandments. That is the aqidah of Ahl Sunnah wal Jama'ah. We believe that Sahaba, Muawiyah radiallahu an, Sahabas, they are, because Allah says, radiallahu anhum wa radu an. Allah was pleased with them and they were pleased with Allah. But the sons of the Sahaba are not like that. And here is an example, right? Somebody whose father is from Ashra Mubash, from the 10. And he is the leader of the army that killed, general of that army that killed Husain radiallahu anh. Right? And it tells us a lot from our, as parents, right? If anybody had a chance to walk out of that army, it should have been Umar ibn Sa'd. Your father is guaranteed Jannah. He was one of the first persons to accept Islam in the first 2 years of Islam. Sa'd ibn Abi Waqqas. And some say in the first week of Islam after Abu Bakr accepted Islam. And here he was leading an army and not feeling any remorse. Okay? So Umar ibn Sa'd, he brings an army of 4,000 people, surrounded by Husain radiallahu an with 70 of his own people, and another 100 people that joined throughout the way as they were coming for the cause. And they are on their way, but Ibn Ziyad sends Hur ibn Yazid, who has a good heart, sends him first with 900 people or 1,000 people and says, stop Husain at all cost. So Hur ibn Yazid comes and meets Husain and says to Husain radiallahu an, Ya Husain, Ya Sibtu Rasulillah, I have been told that I cannot let you come to Kufa, and I have been told that you cannot go back. Because if you go back, you're going to bring a big army. You can't go back. You can't go to Kufa, you can't go back. But I have not been told that you cannot go any other way. Do you get it? Like, he's like, choose another path other than going. So if you do any of that, I did not break the command. So he's like following the letter of the law, but not the spirit of the law. He's like, no, this is the command. I want to give you that room. But he says, نحن ذاهبون إلى كوفة. We're headed towards Kufa and we're not turning away. So he said, أجل أنا معكم. Here's the ajib thing that we must understand, right? I skipped a lot, like so. Muslim ibn Aqil dies in Muharram, in Arafah, and this is like 3 weeks later. Back in the day, 3 weeks was nothing. It's not like, 3 weeks ago. Like 3 weeks was like, he's just arriving. So this begins at the beginning of Muharram, and Hur ibn Yazid says, okay, I'm going to be with you. I'm not going to say anything to you with my army. I've been just commanded to be with you. And I'm going to just walk along wherever you're going to go. Here's the strange part. And here's that 5-floor building and the 6th floor that Husain is trying to build, right? Time comes for Fajr prayer. The 70 people and the 100, total 170 people are leading Fajr. Husain radiallahu an is the only one who is going to lead. And the rest of the 900, 1,000 come and join Fajr with him. And they all pray Fajr with him. And he makes dua and they all say Ameen. And he leaves. The Isha time comes, they come and join. Okay? They come and join. They're praying Jama'ah with Husain. They're like, what? He's like, how can we lead? He's Husain. So they knew his value. They knew who they were against. They understood it very, very well. Religiously, they accepted his dominance and superiority. And then Umar ibn Sa'd's army comes with 4,000 people and takes away Hur ibn Yazid and says, you actually move back, I'm the general, you are going to report to me. And Umar ibn Sa'd said, I have been commanded that no water shall be given to you. So that river that flows in Karbala, they come and they block that entire river with 4,000 people. Just think about it. You are preventing the family of Rasulullah, direct, immediate family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, from accessing free water in the middle of the desert. Like, what could happen to such hearts? And And then obviously they had no choice, so they fought and they were able to get 10 pails of water and they brought them back. Now the next part, what happens is Umar ibn Sa'ad and Husain radiallahu anh, they sit, and as they are sitting, they're having this conversation, and Umar ibn Sa'ad, Husain, and Hurr ibn Yazid, and they're like, look, Husain says, I'm going to give you 3 choices. Okay? And all of them are good choices. Choice 1, let me go back to Makkah. Choice 2, allow me to enter Kufa, and I will talk to Ibn Ziyad myself. But on my own terms, I'm not going to surrender. And choice number 3, allow me to go back to Yazid. So I will go to Yazid myself. Let me go to Sham. وَأَنَا أَتَفَاهَمْ مَعَهُ. I'll have a dialogue with him. And some say the 4th choice was, or leave my path so that I can go and join any people who are involved in defense for Muslims. They are fighting for the country or for the Muslim state, and I will join that army and I will become shaheed in the way of Allah. So this choice is taken back to Ibn Ziyad. Ibn Ziyad says, great choices. But there's this always one person who is, so Shimr ibn Dhi Jawshan, or Dhu Jawshan. Shimr, he says, Ibn Ziyad, look, if you let him go to Yazid, what is your value? You'll be valueless. I mean, if he wants to give bay'ah to Yazid, it should be on your hand. Why are you going to let him go there? And if you allow him to enter free, the entire people of Kufa are going to give bay'ah to him. You must bring him as an asir. You must bring him as a prisoner. And let him have bay'ah to you. And obviously Husain was like, nope, my terms are non-negotiable. So then Umar ibn Sa'ad is having this conversation. The message comes to Umar ibn Sa'ad from Kufa. He's like, well, we cannot do this. At that same moment, they're like, okay, we're going to begin the battle. Next morning, Husain is like, I need some time. Let me pray this night, and next morning we'll pray. He gathers his entire family, and he tells them, listen, they only want me, they don't want any one of you. So why don't all of you pray Maghrib today with me and Isha, and all of you just head back, quietly. You all leave in the middle of the night, and I will take care of this in the morning. It's up to me to take care of it. At that point, obviously, it's not accepted by the people. They're like, no, we came with you. We've been supporting you from day one. And Muslim ibn Aqil's own brothers were in that camp. They're like, our brother was killed for your cause. We're not turning back. حَتَّى نَأْخُذَ ثَأْرْنَا, until we take our revenge. So Husain radiallahu anh then tells him, khalas, if that is the case, then we will meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, all of us, tomorrow. Now tomorrow, the next day when the battle begins, that guy Shimr, that Khabith, now he comes in the middle of the battle, before even the battle begins, and he takes an arrow and shoots, and he says, Kullukum fashhadu, all of you be witness, I was the first one that attacked first in this battle. I mean, he wants honor even on this day. Now the battle begins, and what they do is they kill all the horses first, because this way they can stifle the people. And slowly they start taking out all the people from the family of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but nobody has the courage to shoot Husain radiallahu anh. Finally, he's left, and all the women are protected. They're in houses. And what happens is, now they're like, okay, we have to kill him anyways. So they started shooting intentionally in a way so they miss him or they just snitch him. And it is mentioned that when his body was found, it had, according to the Sunni records, it had more than 37 major traumatic wounds. Each one would be necessary for you to go to ER. 37. And according to the Shia records, obviously they exaggerate, but they say it's close to 100, over 100. They don't even have a definitive number. But bottom line, he was, wounded. Until he said to them, I just have my last request. I just want to hold my son Abdullah in my lap before I die. I'm going to die, you can kill me, do whatever you want. But I just want one request, that you can honor me and give me this honor, that allow me to have my son Abdullah in my lap and hold him once before I leave. This guy Shimr, he says to all of them, including Umar ibn Sa'ad, and he says, listen, the minute Husain puts Abdullah in his lap, watch, I'll show you my marksmanship. I will shoot an arrow right in the Adam's apple of Abdullah while he is in the lap, and I will miss Husain. So when Husain radiallahu anh is holding him in his lap, this person shoots the arrow exactly the way he did it, just with enough strength to kill Abdullah, but not to even touch Husain radiallahu anhum. And then Husain radiallahu anh, as the narration mentions in the history books, that as the blood of Abdullah was coming out like a fountain in the hands of Husain, he was raising the hands to Allah and he says, Ya Allah, it's only you that can take revenge from these people now. I have nobody left. Then Shimr Dhu Jawshan, he says, listen, I'm the one who's going to kill him, because I want to be the one who walk away with this honor. So he goes and he grabs Husain radiallahu anh. He's almost dead right now. He has lost so much blood. And he stands on the chest of Husain radiallahu anh while he's alive. And he takes a knife and not only kills him mercifully, but takes off his head, slicing it with a knife. And then he calls one of his guards and he says, A'tini rimah, give me my spear, I forgot my spear on the horse. And he takes the head of Husain and he pokes it with the spear and puts it on the spear and sends it to Ibn Ziyad. Ibn Ziyad uses a stick and mocks the face of Husain radiallahu an, and then says, we must send it to Yazid so he would be happy. Yazid, he sees and reaches the head of Husain reaches Yazid, and then he taps on the lips with his sword on the face of Husain radiallahu an. There was a Sahabi that was still alive, right? And some say it was a relative of Amr ibn al-As, and some say it was Abdullah. But one Sahabi from the old times who was alive, he said, Ya Yazid, la taf'al hadha. Don't do this. فَوَاللَّهِ إِنِّي رَأَيْتُ بِعَيْنَيْ هَذَا. I saw with these eyes of mine, Rasulullah used to kiss these lips. So stop this. And Yazid said, oh old man, you have become old. And if you did not have a position with my father, I would have killed you by now. And then obviously, the death of Husain radiallahu anh becomes a consolidating of power for Yazid, which he was seeking. And Kufa is resented. Now what happens in Kufa was the entire house and everything that Husain radiallahu anh and the family, everything was burnt. Everything was burnt. Nothing was left. Now, I do need 10 more minutes, so what we're going to do is when the adhan happens, we'll wait for the adhan. We can delay it because I want to finish it today. So we'll just do the adhan and then we'll do the iqama in 15 minutes, which is normal, while I finish the story, inshallah, okay? When the adhan time comes. So now let's pause and let's talk about some of the things that we must understand here, okay? No matter what took place between them, the two sides, we must understand that, on an individual level, all of them, they practice Islam a lot more than us. So the first level, second level, third level, fourth level. The problems that they were having was in the criminal code, the fourth level, fifth level, and the sixth level. But the rest of the four levels of Islam were intact for them, that generation. We must understand this. Like it was unthinkable for even these people that were involved in, from their perspective, our leader Yazid is telling us to do this. We are the rulers, we are the army of that, and we don't think we're just going to do that. Okay? So what happens in this, we must understand that Husain radiallahu anh is trying to build that sixth floor, But the rest of the 5 floors of Islam in general throughout the society was intact. So let us not take this one aspect of, it's a very, very traumatic experience, but let us not use this and say they didn't have any Islam. Because a lot of times we feel that, oh, they were not good Muslims. No, they were better Muslims than us any given day. Any given day. You would not be able to enter Yazid's army if you didn't pray Fajr in the masjid. Right? Most of us would not qualify. So we must understand that their connection with Allah, this was for them a problem at the 5th level, which was a political alliance. And they did not believe that there was a 6th floor. And we must follow Yazid, who has been on bay'ah by his father for 10 years. And everybody has given allegiance to him for 10 years while Muawiyah was alive. And all the major Sahabas had agreed to him. Who are you guys to come and revolt? That's their side. Husain is like, radiallahu, is like, no, I need to build the 6th floor because there are people who want to give bay'ah to me, and you need to give me the full freedom because that's part of our religion. Okay? Who wants to come and give adhan? It's 8:05. Somebody bold. You want to come? Come.
Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح.
لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله.
الله أكبر الله أكبر
الله أكبر.
لا إله إلا الله.
لا إله إلا الله رب هذه وتعالى وسعته آتي محمدا وسيلته والفضيلة وجزاه. Thank you. Close the mic. Turn it off.
Okay.
On the side button off. Turn it off. That's it. Take the mic off. Okay. Bismillah. So then I'll just take 6-7 minutes and we'll wrap up inshallah. There's one important discussion that we must understand in this whole thing, and this discussion comes up. I'm going to avoid a lot of the intricacies and summarize this for you guys. So within the Sunni spectrum, Ahl Sunnah spectrum, there are varying different opinions when it comes to what do we think of Yazid. Okay? From what I've accustomed or got to know, there's 6 different primary spectrums in terms of it. So you have the extreme. They say that he was somebody that if you were to find him on the street, he would be wajib al-qatl. That's one extreme. The others, they have an extreme that he is worthy of a curse of Allah and we should curse him. And some of them, like Imam Taftazani and some others, have actually added this as part of our aqidah, that we must believe that he was a cursed man. And these are all mainstream Sunni scholars. I'm not giving you things that were like extremists. Like these are mainstream Sunni scholars that have impact in our books today. Then you have the other opinion, which is that he was worthy of the curse. His actions were worthy of the curse. This is Imam Nawawi and scholars of that caliber. Imam Ghazali, they are of the opinion that he was worthy of a curse, but we will not curse him. So we will say that the action of killing Husain radiallahu an is an action that is worthy of a curse. But we are not going to say that Yazid will be cursed. And we are not going to absolve him with any responsibility, because he was the one who appointed Ibn Ziyad. He was the one that actually did not specify how to stop Husain. You're dealing with the grandson of Prophet ﷺ, and you know that you're dealing with a tyrant. You should have had this intellect. The other part is the things that Yazid did throughout his reign, right? So the events that took place in Medina were for 3 nights and 3 days. The army of Yazid killed and raped and tortured every single person they could find on the streets. Then him being after Abdullah ibn Zubair in Makkah and sending this army, and then attacking Kaaba. So you cannot, according to Imam Ghazali, according to Imam Nawawi, you cannot absolve him of responsibility. But we do not stand in the position that we send any la'na to him. Then there are those who hold the position that, Yazid was not aware of this. The communication was taking too long, and it takes forever to get the messages, so Yazid is not at fault at all, because the killing had already taken place. Okay? And to me that is a very weak position, because he is the one who took the sword and he was mocking the face of Husain. And this is recorded in authentic narrations. So you can't say that he was happy about it. And the last opinion is people who have written books, for example, Fada'il al-Yazid, the benefits of Yazid. That is another extreme. Okay? And again, these are all Sunni extremes. Whatever you come to realize and come to a conclusion from your reading and analysis, it's not befitting that we separate as an ummah, because no matter where you stand in this spectrum of Yazid, you're still a Muslim. And it is not a matter that should divide us, or not a matter. As for me, I personally think that I lean very much with the opinion of Imam Ghazali and Imam Nawawi, that we cannot absolve him from the responsibility. He is responsible for that. Even by de facto, if you are a leader, you're a CEO, and people in the bottom did something. Recently we saw Rogers' phone outage. The chief technology officer was fired. He didn't do anything. He doesn't even know how to program those routers. But they're like, well, doesn't matter. It happened on your watch. You're going to take the fall for it. So it happened on his watch, rather a person he appointed. Okay? So that's where I think we should not curse him. But his actions were curse-worthy, and he is responsible for these things. Again, wherever you are in this spectrum, we're all, inshallah, Muslims. We should not fight over this. There are those that take a particular position because it's politically more sound. There are those who take the last 2 opinions because it is in contrast to the other side. So it is a more politically befitting position to take, right? And again, Allahu alam, but most of this is a matter that an awam should not get involved in. But you are going to hear these conversations, so you should be aware that all of this is Sunni spectrum of credible scholars such as Ibn Jawzi, somebody who wrote tafsir books and somebody who wrote fiqh books. He was saying, this guy, it is Imam Taftazani, it's part of your iman to believe that he's cursed. Okay? So you can't deny those scholars. They had their reasonings, and we all have our reasonings, and we should not fight over this matter, inshallah. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us the true understanding of the history, and allow us to learn from this lesson, and understand that one lesson that we must walk away as a community. We are going to be tested, and if you are not realizing that, you are really in a dream state. The Muslim community at large, in Canada, in US, in the Western world, is going to be tested very, very hard. And you are already seeing those ripple waves every now and then happening. And we must understand that in this test, the victory will be for those who learn from the lesson and life of Husain to stand up for what you believe is right, even at the expense of your own life. And we will have times where some of us, I mean, look at the people that have, just down the street, we had a very, strange Islamophobic incident in another masjid. Down the street, somebody came in the Fajr to kill the people. This is like down the street, the masjid down the street on McAdams. So these tests are only going to intensify. They're not going to subside. So Husain's story is this challenge for all of us, that we, each one of us in our lives, and I'll repeat what I started with, that all of us, we have a Yazid to fight in our lives, in our societies, and we have a Husain to become. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He gives us a tawfiq to do that. أقول قولي هذا واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروا فإنه هو الغفور الرحيم. Inshallah. Sisters, if you can come on this side. If I can get 3 brothers with Brother Fazl, so they can put up the part.